Steve, welcome to Australia.
Thank you, Gordon.
Nice to see you again.
Pleasure.
Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us.
Yeah.
Today you spoke a lot about your experience with Erickson. You were one of Erickson's main students. What I've noticed is Jeff Zeig, Steve Langton, all you guys speak very affectionately about Erickson. There's a real warmth when you talk about him. What made Erickson the man that he was?
Well, I wish you could bottle it because it would sell a lot. I think that, one of Erickson's main ideas that was really a very deep idea was that everybody's really unique. And he was a great model of that. He was a very strange guy. He was a very alive guy. He was a very dynamic guy. He was the most interesting guy that I ever met. Secondly, he was the most effective therapist that I ever met. And then he was this very interesting hypnotic character, like we were just talking about Yoda. He was a very Yoda-like character. So he was a very impressive guy on many, many different dimensions. One of the areas that he was most impressive was how much support and care that he could give to his patients and to his students. So not only was he an amazing guy, but I think he had a capacity to be able to see people at a very deep level and to give what I call blessing to that. So when I met him, I was 19. I was just starting out. I was a confused kid. And he touched something inside of me really, really deeply. And he touched a lot of people, but I'm really happy he reached in, he touched something, and he said, that's something very special, and you have a really important contribution to make. And it was this young kid, it was just like this fire was lit inside of me that has never gone out despite various efforts of mine. One interesting thing to note that I never paid him a cent. I trained with him for over 5 years, and I didn't have any money. I was a poor college student. My family didn't have any money. And when I asked him how much I would need to pay him, he said, you don't have to pay me anything. The way you can repay me is whatever you find helpful here, you can pass it on to others. So he was doing the work from a really deep place of heart. And I think he couldn't help but feel grateful and affected and inspired by a guy like that.
And you really wanted it, didn't you? You
Yeah.
really wanted what he had, what he could give you.
Well, I had an interest in altered states since I was a young kid. Grew up in an Irish Catholic alcoholic family. Some would say that's redundant. And I think I went into a deep trance as a kid, I think, to try to deal with a lot of the confusion, a lot of the stuff that was happening. And so I always had an interest in altered states. Always had an interest in feeling inside of other people. When I met Erickson, it was like, here's the guy that knows about this. They say it sort of connected to an interest I had as a little boy and gave me a sense that here's what you can do as your life work.
And when you study with Erickson, there's been this situation where Erickson's been taught in many different ways since.
Yeah.
What do you think is the central premise, the central
Utilization.
Utilization.
I think generally virtually all of the students would agree with that. I remember some years back, Ernie Rossi, Steve Langton and Jeff Zeig and I were teaching a workshop together in LA, and Rossi invited us to lunch. And he was preparing a keynote address, the Erickson Foundation. He says, I want to ask you guys to list what you think the 3 enduring principles of Erickson's work. Number 1 on each of our lists, without too much surprise, is accept and utilize whatever is there. I think when all the dust settles, and 30 years into it, the dust has settled, 30 years from when he died, almost 30 years, that is the beautiful, radical, enduring principle that he contributed. that whatever the person is doing, no matter how strange, no matter how bizarre, that's the basis for the work.